The balance of life, yin and yang. Or, at this rate, probably trending letters that make the whole alphabet probably kind of crazy in its stock for hobby stores. Maybe TRK started a trend almost 2 years ago. We did go to a hobby store looking for, some stuff to buy, and he definitely picked those two specific letters, and, keep tabs on that. Maybe in a few years, some of these, wood letter manufacturers and metal might take note that there might be a few more of those letters being bought than the other 24. But, good picking, TRK. As you know, great use of those letters so far. Thank you so much for picking out those kind items, I've noticed that, over the years we've talked about, with friends and family, the psychology of the business world, and there's different socioeconomics and different demographics that can be looked at for different products and all that. And when it comes from things like going to the gas station, and the gas station might have its drinks in the back, so it gets you to potentially buy a snack, or you go to the grocery store and they definitely know that a lot of people tend to go to the grocery store to get at least milk. So milk tends to be in the back, but logistically also refrigeration all tends to be in a shared unit. Regardless, it's a nice benefit. It's a nice bonus. And then you look into things like how grocery stores, what playlists they're using. It can be like some nice, cheerful kind of pop music. The playlist can be nostalgic for a certain era if they think a certain demographic might be around there. Or it literally could just be the manager wants to listen to 80s rock, which, I'm a big rock and roll fan myself in general. I am going to give a salute, a non-sponsored, non-partnered salute to how much of a bullseye American casinos hit in terms of just such a great aesthetic. It's one of those things where it's like when people bring up in conversations like, oh, that a lot of casinos don't have windows so people can't see the time passing, or that they use playlists from like 70s music because the current demographic that goes there a lot is nostalgic for it. And I'm like, yeah, and they're killing it. Yeah. Obviously, I can't generalize every casino, but, it's to the point that all the music today is from video game music that does casino music. And, talk about an aesthetic, it's actually kind of killer to think about. Basically, casino jazz is its own subgenre. And I actually think video games like Mario Sunshine and Sonic the Hedgehog played a big part in pushing that kind of soundscape. Obviously a big inspiration is Las Vegas, Nevada. Big neon lights, and that's the thing. It's like you understand that casinos do things like big sounds, big lights to keep people around, a good buffet, and it's like, yeah, and it's pretpretty great. Yeah. Yeah, it really is one of those cases where I think a lot of people, if they fully realized they were, if they realized that these things were happening to them, they might not be a fan. But in terms of the casino, I'm just like, hey, they're killing it. It's a pretty fun aesthetic. And, my favorite casino is Ameristar in Kansas City. And I've been there quite a few times. Birthdays, just getting together with friends and family. Yeah, I mean, again, they kind of hit that bullseye of, it's not just a place you go to gamble. In fact, ironically, I've hardly ever put money in the actual casino in terms of slot machines. Now, what I do, kind of like when I go to stores, I do feel like it's a nice courtesy that if you're going to use a place for a while, you should at least buy something. So, I always try to do a little bit of like usually the penny slots or something. But, in terms of, the aesthetic and hanging out with friends and get, free soft drinks, even though I don't drink soda, like, there's still often like lemonade or iced tea. Also coffee. there's a lot of like cool stuff they offer. And again, it's the whole, do you know why they do that, right? It's like, yeah. And you know what, I kind of have a good time with me and my friends. Friends and family. It really is one of those cases where I thought about, there are locations or groups of people that downright don't want you to think about what they're doing in terms of like trying to influence a demographic. But in this case, it's like an art form almost. It's a pretty fun environment. And it is sad that Ameristar lost their buffet after the pandemic, which buffets I think probably tanked some of the highest in terms of restaurants. But the Ameristar buffet was my favorite place to eat in Kansas City. It was that good. I mean, my dad can vouch. Our good friend Brian Busby can vouch. Like we to this day talk about how amazing the dessert bar is alone. But it was a pretty good deal. And so I just sit here thinking about, it's not just like, oh, nostalgic memories. It's about like to this day, I'll bring up to my friends, oh, we should go to the casino soon. And again, I'm not even a big gambler. Yeah, I play poker once a week, but that's with digital chips. And so, I enjoy watching, people playing cards, and I'm not against trying poker in the future for sure, like in person. But yeah, just kind of the environment. It's actually just, it can be a fun place to walk around. Now, of course, be careful about like the smoking areas if you don't smoke. Because I know some people are sensitive to like cigarette smoke, so that I definitely make a disclaimer on that. I also want to make a disclaimer on be careful with gambling. It's like you think that'd be common sense, but when we do talk about like a targeted demographic, I don't think a lot of casinos are complaining about people almost spending their house savings. It comes down to the individual casino, but it's still, please be careful. Like you really should only go to casino and gamble with what you're willing to lose. So in my case, I just like using the slot machine for fun. So the fact that they have penny slots, I'm like, oh no, that's great. But it again, like when you look at running not just running a business, but running events. I've brought up going to Pokemon Nationals for so many years. There's a certain art form to like a kind of welcoming aesthetic, an aesthetic that makes people want to stick around for long. And Pokemon events do that pretty well. They don't have to put up all those cool banners around the tournament, right? One thing I hope they do is they start playing Pokemon music though in the venue, like in the background. It always threw me. It's not that they had bad music. In fact, I remember one year a judge came up to me and she's like, "Wow, you're really dancing to the music." She basically said something like that, and it's true. It actually, props to them. While I'm playing cards, they're playing what sounds like, kind of stock electric dance music, but good music's good music. You definitely don't want to judge just by stock. And so I think Pokemon, obviously, I think they should dial into their amazing soundtracks they have. Just all around, but regardless, it's already good. You add the music, and I think you would really dial it up there. We're talking like 10 to 11 venue aesthetic. You own copyright to it, so yeah, I'd say go for it. But yeah, those Pokemon events are great, and you walk around convention centers, and I think there is kind of a business art form to it. There's a business art form, again, like I said, about going to the gas station or the grocery store and getting drinks and milk and how it's in the back, so it gets you to look around more, or the music that's played. Like there is thought that's put into a lot of it, even if that thought really is just, oh, I just love 80s rock, I own this store. But in terms of casinos, man, they've been killing it for decades, to the point that, gosh, there's so many people that praise the Game Corner music in Pokemon. And again, those casino levels in Sonic the Hedgehog and Super Mario Brothers. The first time I learned poker was against Luigi in the Mario 64 DS casino mini games that he would do. Again, it's just a cool aesthetic. It really is. It's kind of this silver lining. They kind of ambiguously hit the sweet spot of it's a big kind of demographic marketing tactic. But it works. It works to the point that, again, I'm not sponsored or partnered, and I'm just wanting to talk about how much of a good job they kind of do. It again, multiple birthdays there. And it's just been a fun time, and I look forward to going back there soon with some good friends. I love Mondays.